Hello beautiful people, thank you for coming back to my YouTube channel, and today's tutorial is on how to achieve this gathered or pleated turban cap with the donut design using the mesh net fabric. Please, if you are just joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome. Please do well to subscribe before leaving our channel. You won't regret it. We have lots of detailed tutorials and more are still coming your way. The materials used in today's tutorial include your mesh net fabric, of which you'll be needing 1 yard, your scissors, your measuring tape, your matching color of thread and needle. And in place of your mesh net fabric, you can as well use any other fabric. For this particular tutorial, this is the design that we are working on, and then as you can see, the design is divided into 3 parts. First, we have the base, which is the cap, and then we have this high donut design here, which is also divided into 2 parts, the inner parts and the outer parts. So like I said earlier, the cap, the donut design, which further has the inner part and the outer part, and then there's also your embellishment. So this is what we are going to be working on. This design which we are working on has the turban base, which has the band and the base. I'm using mesh net fabric, and then it is a round band to band. Before now, I've cut out my fabric, so I'll go ahead to state each of the fabrics and the measurements that are required. Now, starting the tutorial, I have the band for my cap here, and the measurement I'm using is 4.5 inches for the width by 21.5 inches for the head circumference. The reason why I'm using 21.5 inches is because the mesh net fabric is very stretchy and it tends to stretch a lot, so that's why I'm using 21.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Now, coming over to the fabric for the base, I have my fabric here. I'm using 20 inches for the width and then 25 inches for the length, which is the head circumference. I'm using 25 inches by 20 inches. This is to enable me have a turban cap with a backdrop effect. Now, starting the turban cap, I have my turban base here, and remember it's a gathered or pleated turban cap. So I've gone ahead to measure my fabric and then rule it out, and I'm using 1.5 inches as the measurement, okay, as the measurement of the interval. I've marked out my fabric and I've ruled it out. Now, when it comes to ruling it out, use your tape to measure each point, or better still, get a ruler that has the same measurement as the width that you want to use for the interval, okay. So that is what I did, and I went ahead to place my ruler because the width is 1.5 inches, got my pen, and I marked it from one end of the fabric to the other end, just like that, in that order, till I've completely marked my fabric. Now I'm going to get this on my sewing machine and I'm going to be sewing. I'll start sewing along each marked line, one after the other, until I get to the end. Now, this is my fabric already sewn. Each marked line have been sewn from one side of the fabric to the other side, and remember, your marked line should be on the wrong side of your fabric. Now, make a notch at the middle of your turban fabric, as you have seen it on mine. Then I'll get the fabric for the band. Also get your scissors and fold your fabric into 2, and then go ahead to make a notch at the middle of the fabric for the band. Thereafter, you get your fabric, you fold it into 2 equal halves with the wrong side inside and the front side outside, and place on one end of your turban cap. Please ensure that the middle of the turban cap, that is the middle of the band and the base, which you notched earlier, are aligned together. This is very important so as to get the backdrop effect. Now you see me pinning the band and the base together so as to join both of them together. Then I'll place this on my sewing machine and sew from one end of the fabric to the other end. Right here I have my fabric already sewn. You can see my band, that is the wrong side, and then this is the fine side. I will now go ahead to fold my fabric into 2 equal halves to form the cap, and then I'll get this on my sewing machine and start sewing from the band down to the base. Please, you first sew down on the band, then you adjust it, sew on the band, go straight to the other side before you sew down to the very end. So right here I have my turban cap already sewn. So this is it, and at this point you can now get it to your weaving machine and then weave around these edges. Okay, so let's assume that that is done. Next, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be making a running stitch on the turban cap, and for that we'll be needing a matching color of thread as well as a needle. So for my running stitch, I have my needle and thread here, and then I will start from this part immediately after the band down to this end. So from this end down to this end. So I'll just start by passing my needle and thread in and out from one end until I get to the end of the fabric, and then I'll secure my thread and cut off the excess thread. So this is it. I'm done with the wrong side. Now I'll flip this inside out to the fine side, and then we're going to be creating the gathers at the middle of the cap. So this is it, and I have the middle right here. So I'll open it up this way. I'll get my needle and thread, and then I'll start passing it from the wrong side of the cap, and then I'll pass it upwards. I'll fold this first pleat, this part here, into two, pass my needle and thread through it, go ahead to fold the second part into two, pass my needle and thread through it. Okay, the middle part in that order. That's how I'll keep folding the fabric into two, and I'll pass my needle and thread through it until I get to this very end, and then I'll secure my thread and cut off the excess thread. So this is it, and then I'll go ahead to secure it. So as soon as all that is done, I have my gathered and pleated turban cap here. This is the front view, and then this is the back view. So I'll set this aside while we work on the design. I have mine here. I'll be working with this. So I'm going to set this aside until when and where it will be needed. Now for our design itself, like I said earlier, it has the inner part and the outer part. So we'll be starting with the inner part first. For this inner part, it's not compulsory that you have to follow this procedure which I use. You can as well get any piece of fabric and then arrange it to give you that inner part, but I just wanted to follow this. Now you get your piece of fabric. Now for this first piece of fabric, I have 60 inches. Yes, the full length of the fabric is 60 inches, and then the width is 8 inches, 60 by 8 inches, and I have it here. Then the second piece of fabric which I have here is 3 inches wide. Yes, it is 3 inches wide, and it's also 60 inches long, although we're going to have excess at the end of the day, but I just decided to cut it out long this way. So 60 inches by 3 inches for the second piece of fabric. We're going to be passing this inside the ruffles. Now get the first piece of fabric, which we measured as 8 by 60 inches, and then fold it into two. Okay, folding it into two this way. The fine side of the fabric should be inside, and the wrong side of the fabric should be facing you. After folding into two, we're going to be sewing. Okay, start sewing from this end and then sew down until you get to this other end here. So this is my piece of fabric. And I've finished sewing, and I've turned my fabric inside out, and I have it this way. So this is it for this. Now I'm going to get my 3 inches piece of fabric, and then I've added my safety pin to one end. So I'm going to be passing it in my fabric this way. So I'm going to be passing this inside my fabric. I'm going to do this until my 3 inches fabric comes out from the other end. So this is it. I've pulled it up and it's out from this other end. I'm going to remove my pin, and then this is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm folding in this edge down, and then I'm also going to fold in this other end, and I'm going to stitch this down. So having folded this end, I'm going to use my pin to help me hold it down, so that the fabric, the 3 inches fabric, does not at any point loose, because I'm going to be dragging the fabric to form my ruffles. So I'll get this part of my sewing machine and stitch it down. That is for that end. Now I have my fabric, and then this is this other end where the excess fabric is. Why this part has my 60 inches long fabric. So I'm just going to be pulling this down to the end. I'll be pulling it. You don't have to pull it so tight, okay? You just have to pull it to form. This is it. So this is the ruffles, okay? So you have to adjust it and set it how you want it to be. So this excess fabric, remember I said it's 3 inches by 60, and we'll not be making use of it all. This excess fabric that I have left, I'm going to be cutting it off. Please, I also want to emphasize that you can make use of any other kind of fabric in place of this mesh net. You can use your scuba, your metallic, your satin, whatever fabric which you have available. Even your Ankara fabric, yes, you can make use of your Ankara fabric. So I want to also secure this end to close it up. So I'll take this to my sewing machine, and I will stitch the end down to secure it. So this is it. I've been able to secure this end and secure this other end. So this is what I get, and then how it looks like. Now for the inner part of the cap, I have my fabric ready now. So what I'm going to be doing is this. I'm going to be folding it round, okay? I'm going to be folding it round this way. Now instead of going through this process of making this inner part with a scrunchie format, you can get any piece of fabric and then fold it all together. Fold your piece of fabric together to give you something like a ball or a donut design that you can place in the middle in place of doing this whole process. But I just want to go through this entire process for it. Now as soon as you are done, we are going to be stitching it, okay? So you just wrap a piece of fabric round. You just get a piece of fabric and wrap it round this way. So this is it. You have to arrange it properly and adjust it, because it's the inner part of the fabric, it's the inner part of the design. So I haven't done this. I'm just going to get my needle and thread, and I'm going to tack down this end, this end where we wrap it to meet with the other end. So I have my needle and thread. So this is my work, and then I'm now going to stitch down this end to close it up, okay? You just have to use your initiative while tacking. Now if you cannot stitch, you can as well make use of your candle gum and glue gun to secure everything. So we're just trying to form like a ball that we'll use for the inner parts of the donut design. So I'm just going to stitch this all through, and then after stitching I'll get back and we'll continue with the whole process. So this is it. This is my work, and then I'll just place this down again and tack it at this point. So when I'm done, we'll continue. At this point, I'm done tacking everything down together, and I have it this way. Now I'm going to get my cap, and then I'm going to be tacking this down to the middle of my cap. So while tacking, you give a little bit of allowance from the band. So I'm just going to tack this down on my cap this way. I have to secure it to the base of the cap. So this is it. Then I'll get my needle and thread and start tacking from inside, so that this donut design here and the cap can become one. Okay, so just start, use your initiative, but ensure that you tack firmly. So I'll keep tacking, and then as I'm tacking, I'll be going around because I have to secure the whole design down to the cap. At this junction, I've fully secured this design to the cap. Okay, can use candle gum and glue gun in place of this. So this is how it is. And then to continue, we have to cut another piece of fabric and wrap around this, but the measurements for this next step depends on the, should I say, the length or how high this your design is. That will determine the length of the fabric you'll be cutting next. This is the design that we just finished working on. As you can see, this is our cap, and then this is the design here at the middle of the cap. So to determine the next step, I said we have to measure this length here. Okay, or should I say the width rather, so that we can know the measurements for the next piece of fabric. So this is the back view. Although this point here is very rough, but it does not really matter because we'll be wrapping it round. So I have my cap and my measuring tape here, and I have about 3 inches here for the height. So the fabric we are going to be cutting out for the outer part of the design is going to be between 7 to 8 inches for the width. This is because after cutting out your fabric, we are going to fold it into 2 and then sew from the beginning of the fabric to the end of the fabric, and then turn it inside out. Now see, if our height is 3 inches and we decide to cut out 6 inches, because after folding into 2 and sewing, it will decrease to about 5.5 inches or 5 inches. You'll see that it will be too small to go round to cover the height of that donut design there. So it's either you cut out 7 inches, 7.5, or 8 inches, so that after sewing and turning your fabric inside out, it would be enough to cover and go around that donut design. Okay, at this point I have my fabric, and my fabric has already been sewn, and I've also turned it inside out. Now for my fabric, the measurement I used is 8 inches by 60 inches, and then after sewing and turning it inside out, I have 3.5 inches. So that is it. So I cut out 8 inches by 60 inches. I folded it into 2 and I had it sewn, and that's after sewing and turning it inside out, I now have 3.5 inches by 60 inches. So you remember that the other donut design is 3 inches, so my fabric is now 3.5. Definitely it will go around it and cover it properly. This is what I've been trying to explain. So as soon as we are done sewing and turning your fabric inside out, we'll continue with the next step. At this point I have my cap here, and then I'm going to get my fabric, and then this is what you also want to get your needle and thread ready. This is what I'll be doing. I'll start wrapping this fabric around the donut design. Okay, now for easy access, you can place this on your dummy head. So as I wrap it round, I will get my needle and thread and then tack it down and secure it. Or more preferably, which is much more easier, is to get your candle gum and glue gun. As you wrap it round this way, you apply your glue and glue it down. As you wrap it round, you glue it down. Now, depending on how big the inner part is, while pulling your fabric, while wrapping it down, you can compress it. You can pull it tighter so that it compresses to give you a smaller shape. And then the height of this donut design depends on the height of the inner donut design, of the inner fabric. So if you want it very high, like remember when we measured, it was about 3 inches. So depending on how you fold your fabric, you can make it smaller. You can make it 2 inches, you can make it 1.5 inches, depending on how big you want it to be. So this is it. Now I'm going to place this on my dummy head and also repeat the same process for us to get it better. Remember, I said you have to glue it as you wrap it round so that it can stay in place. If you are not gluing, you have to tack it together. So this is the cap on the dummy head, and then this sewn part should come down, while this folded end should be at the tip. Now, like I said earlier, you start wrapping this end here, you either tack it down, or like I said, make use of your glue gum and candle gum throughout. So this is it now. So if you are not comfortable working on your working table, you can make use of your dummy head. I'll keep wrapping this round, and like I said earlier, you can further compress it to make the inner part smaller. So I'll just keep taking my fabric round. Okay, you can as well, if you don't want to use the full length of fabric, you can as well decrease the measurement and use probably 30, 40, 50 inches, depending on how big you want your design to be. So this is it. This is the final look. And then, like I said, you have to either work with glue gun or stitch throughout to secure it. So this end, I have my needle and thread here, and I'm going to stitch to secure it. Now please note that in place of your mesh net fabric, you can as well use your scuba fabric to achieve this design. However, I wanted to use the mesh net fabric in order to get a different outlook, different from the normal scuba fabric. Okay, so I'll keep tacking, and as soon as I'm done, I'll get back. So after tacking, this is what I get. Now I tacked down this way with my thread being visible because I'm going to embellish with my accessories, which is going to further hide it down. I've secured my thread. All that is left for me to do is to cut off the excess thread. Now this is our work, this is our design. So this is the front view. Now this is without embellishment. The reason why I said while making the inner design that you should take it backward a bit is because while wrapping, the wrapping is going to cover the inner design and then come out in front. And as you can see, we have almost covered this tip here, this front front part of the band. So if the fabric was still remaining, if it was more and we had gone around once, you'd have seen that would have completely covered this part. So always ensure that you take the inner part of the design inside a bit before you tack it down to the base. So this is it without embellishment, and then this is the inner part. So this is how it looks like. Depending on how you fold your fabric, that will determine how this top part will be. And then, like I said earlier, you can reduce the length of the fabric for the outer part if you don't want it to be that big. And then at this point, you can now decide to embellish with whatever kind of accessories that you prefer, and then using your gum, either your UAG gum or your glue gun and your candle gum too. So this is it for this design. So for my work, I'm going to be using this applique, this kind of applique for it. Starting with the back that I tagged. All I have to do is to get the applique that can go with it, and then I'll apply gum, and then I'll cover it this way. So after apply, I have to apply enough gum so that it can stick to it and it will not come off easily. So this is it for this part. Then for this other part, I'll also get my gum, apply and place this round it. Then coming to the left side, I'll get another applique. So as soon as you are done embellishing for the left side, you also do that for the right side. However, in place of this particular kind of pattern which I intend to use, you can use any other kind of pattern and accessory for your embellishment. So as soon as I'm done embellishing mine, I'll show us the final look. After applying gum on my appliques and gluing down on my fabric, this is the finished look of my turban cap with embellishment. And with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe until our next tutorial. Bye.